Welcome back to another week. This week we're going to explore the idea of modeling and or creating some kind of a simple creature or a machine with a few individual parts, and we're going to bring those parts into After Effects, and then I'm going to have you animate some of the action points of that part just to kind of bring it to life. So this week we're talking about modeling, rigging, and animating some kind of a simple creature or machine. So let's start by opening up After Effects here. We'll make a new composition. This week our width is 640, our height is 480 pixels. We're going to do 30 or 29.97 frames per second and at least 5 seconds. I've started with a 10-second, and then I can adjust as I need to go. So I'm going to click OK. Okay, so now we have our file. It's 640 by 480 here in a 10-second animation. We need to bring our parts into After Effects or we can't do the rigging and the animation. So what I decided to do, a couple options here. You can build your parts in like Photoshop, or you can even build them in After Effects on solid layers, you know. So you could do that. You can make your parts to your simple creature or machine here using solid layers, or you could go into Photoshop. What I did was I decided to go into Photoshop here. So I have a file here, and what I did was I made a skeleton in a 3D modeler animation program called Bryce several years ago, and I'm going to use that. So what I did was I just grabbed a JPEG of it. I'm going to drop that in here. You can see there, if you look at the layer, it's a smart object. It came in automatically as a smart object. So I can right click on that layer. Actually, let me go here and rasterize the layer, or I can, if I rasterize the layer, then it's no longer a smart object there. So if it comes in where you have to rasterize layer, just right click on it and choose rasterize layer. And there's my image there, my skeleton. So I'm going to zoom in on it. And notice there it's got a lot of parts, so I could have moving parts. I can move the legs, I can move the arms at the shoulders, I can move the arms at the elbows, I can move the head too. But I can't do that with just a JPEG image, right? Because it's a flattened image, and each part has to be on its own layer. So probably the first thing I would do is I'd unlock my background layer. First of all, let me click on that. And we'll just call this background. So to unlock a locked layer, just double click on it, and then you can rename it if you want. And let's go ahead and change the background to black here. So if I turn off this top layer, you can see now my background here on the bottom layer is black. And so is the background on this layer. But what I want to do on the skeleton here, on the skeleton layer, is get rid of the black background. I don't want this to have any background. And to do that, I could use my magic wand tool. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to go to my tool settings here. Let's see here. Go up here to the top here where my settings are. Now, I could select contiguous, but contiguous would only delete the areas that are all connected in some way. So I'm going to leave contiguous off. I'm going to bump up my tolerance to about 50%. And now I'm just going to select the black area. And okay, so it looks like I got most of it there, but I don't know. It looks like it's taking away from some of the other areas too. So that's not good. So what I want to do is probably deselect that. And let's try it again. This time let's bump the tolerance down to 25. Okay. So I'm going to click on here, and it looks pretty good. It looks like I'm getting just about everything. I'm missing some of those. So let's try it one more time. Control D. Let's bring the tolerance down to maybe 5. Click in there, and it looks like I'm getting everything now. So now that that's all selected, I can hit delete. You can see there it's preserved just about all of it. That looks pretty good. I think I can live with that. Okay, Control D. So now that I have that saved, now what I can do is duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate it several times. So here I can right click on it, choose duplicate layer, click OK. Now I can hold down Shift and select both of these, right click, duplicate those layers. Okay, right click on the 4 here, or I mean shift click on the 4, Duplicate these layers. That gives me 8. And then I probably want 2 or 3 more, so I'll just do 3 more. Grab these and duplicate these. Okay. Now the reason why I made so many copies of these is because on each layer I'm going to save or have a different part to the skeleton. Okay. So we'll start on the top here. I'm going to turn off all the skeleton layers except for the top one. Okay, so I just have the top layer on now and the background underneath. And this one I'm going to label and call it skull and neck. Okay, so that's skull and neck. So what I'm going to do now is, remember, I don't have a background on there. I'm just going to grab my selection tool. I'll use the rectangular one. And I'm just going to select the skull and the neck here. That's all I want at this point. Okay, and now notice here, watch this. If I hold down Alt, I can select an area of that selection and eliminate some of it. Okay, so right there, I want to save this, the head and the neck, right? So I want to delete everything else. Okay, so if I just hit delete now, right, it's going to delete the skeleton or the skull and the neck. So instead of doing that, Control Z, I want to go up to select and choose inverse and delete everything around it, right? Control T to deselect. So there's my skull and neck on this layer, okay? So now I can turn on this bottom layer. And for this one, I'm just going to save the torso right here. Okay, so let's see what I can do here. I'm going to, again, I'll just continue to use the rectangular selection there. Okay, that looks pretty good. Maybe right there. And then again, remember what I can do is I can go up here and hold down Alt. And while I'm holding down Alt, I can deselect an area of my selection to make it more precise. Okay, and I can also do that here on the sides, like I just did. About there, and then again right here probably. Actually, that looks pretty good right there. So I'll leave that, I guess, the way it is. Okay, and then again, go up to select, choose inverse, hit delete. Okay, and notice there I was on the wrong layer, right? So Control Z, make sure that's still there. Make sure you're on the correct layer, right? Now hit delete. Okay, and there's my, that's going to be my torso. So I'm going to call this layer torso. Okay, and then deselect, Control D. And now what I want to do is grab the eraser. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So I'm just going to go in here, make sure I'm on the correct layer there, and just erase what I need to erase. Okay. And that eraser's pretty big, but I think I can get it without hitting anything, at least for the most part. Okay, and then I can bring this down a little smaller. Okay, I'll leave that for now. I may need to erase some of that later. Okay, and then up here again, same thing, get right there in the ball socket there. Looks pretty good. Not perfect, but here we can, the left bracket tool will make this smaller. The right bracket tool will make it larger. Okay, and just kind of clean that up a little bit. And I think that's good, right? So that's our torso. We have our skull and neck. Now let's turn on the other one, figure out what we're going to do next. Next we'll do the, I'll call this his, or it's my left, so I'll call it left bicep over here. It's going to be to my left. So make sure you're on the right layer. Go ahead and name it. I'm going to name it LT for left bicep. Okay, so now that I have that, so now I'm going to select that bicep over here. And I probably want to get it about right there, let's say. That looks pretty good. And go ahead and choose select inverse. Make sure you're on the right layer and then hit delete. There we go there. So Control D to deselect that. And that looks pretty good. And I can, if you want to test it out, you can just bring it over here and say, okay, I've got a little extra there I want to erase. Okay, so if you need to, you can do that. Move it away a little bit and then just grab your eraser. Just kind of take your time. That looks pretty good right there. Okay, and then you grab your move tool and just move this back to where it needs to go. Right in there. Okay, so that's left bicep. And then in the next one, we're going to do left forearm. And again, it's my left. I always do that based on my left. You can see where my bicep is off from the other one. So if I go to this layer, I can bring this out back to where it needs to go. Oh, that's good enough. Well, no, I guess I need to line that up, don't I? Let's see, make sure I'm on left bicep, and I think auto select is on my layers. If auto select is on and you start accidentally selecting layers, you can go up to the top of the screen and turn that off. If you turn off auto select, then you can move around the layer that you want to. And it looks like snap is on, so I'm going to turn off snap too. So if I go up to view, turn off snap, and now I can move this thing wherever I want, and it's not going to snap to something. So there, now I'm even with where I was before. So let's go down here, and we're going to name this left forearm. And again, I'm basing that on my left. I don't know, I just like to do it that way. If it's from the skeleton's perspective, it's his right forearm, but that's okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and select the area here that I want to keep. Need to make that a little wider. There we go. And now let's say if I need to add some more, I can go over here, and if I can get right on this line here, hold down shift and then draw a selection area, and you can expand it. See how it expanded it there? Let's do that again. Hold down shift and expand your area. I didn't get it that time, I don't think. So let's deselect. Let's try it again. There we go. Let's make sure we get everything. And then you can move the selection area a little bit too if you want. That's good right there. Okay, and so now let's do one more here. Hold down shift, drag it out. There we go. And then do select, inverse. Okay, and now so we have the left forearm by itself, the left bicep by itself, the torso by itself, and finally the skull and neck by itself. Deselect. Okay, and then there's a little artifact in there, it looks like. So let me grab the eraser. Just make sure I erase. Okay, that's good. All right, so now the next one we're going to do is going to be to my right bicep, or RT bicep. Okay, and so we're going to go over here now on this side and select that bicep. About right there, I think. Just move over here just a little bit. And then let's see. Yeah, that's probably good right there. Select inverse, and again hit delete. Okay, and then deselect, Control D. Again, grab my move tool if I want. And just move that thing over. Control D, deselect. Make sure you grab your right tool there. I didn't have the correct tool. And let's just go ahead and erase a little bit off of that. You can just kind of take your time. Just kind of round it off. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then we'll move this back into position here. Something like that. Then we turn this one on. We can, again, move this one back over a little bit more. Back where it needs to go. Perfect. Okay. So now this will be right forearm, RT forearm. Okay, same thing. Grab your selection. Kind of tedious. That's okay. That'll cover it right there. Move this over. Again, go up to select, choose inverse, hit delete, and there's our right forearm. Control D to deselect. Okay, so next we'll probably want to do the pelvis. So I'm going to name this pelvis. Turn the layer on, and we're just going to keep the pelvis there in the center, right? So I'm going to grab my rectangular selection again. Select an area there. That's good right there. Choose inverse. Hit delete. And there's my pelvis. Let's go ahead and grab our move tool. And if I hold down shift, I can move that down in a straight line. Okay, Control D to deselect. Let's grab the eraser here and we'll clean this up. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we can get rid of some of this down here. Just take your time, take your finger off the mouse once in a while so you don't lose all your hard work. Okay, just clean it up. Okay, that looks good right there. So now I grab my move tool, hold shift, and move this thing back up into position. And notice there, look at that. I don't even have to do any modifications on the spinal area. Okay, and then the next thing we'll do is, let's do left femur. Okay, turn that on. So we're going to save the left femur, to my left that is. Okay. To about there. That's good right there probably. And again, if I want to, I can hold down Alt and draw a selection box within the selection box to narrow down my selection. Go to Select Inverse, hit Delete, and again, same thing. Let's go ahead and grab our Move tool, hold down Shift, and bring that down in a straight line. Then we can grab the eraser. Let's deselect that. Again, grab the eraser and make your adjustments here. I'm just going to try to round it off a little bit here the best I can. Looking pretty good. I think that'll work. Grab my move tool again, hold down shift, move this thing back up into position. That looks good there. That's left femur. And then on this one, we're going to do left calf. Okay, again, turn this on, and we're going to go ahead and grab our selection here. Probably straight down there, right there. That looks good right there. Select inverse, hit delete. Okay, and then we should be able to, again, grab the move tool, hold shift down, move that in a straight line. See if we need to erase anything. It looks like we don't, so we can actually just go Control Z, put that back where it is. And that's our left calf. Okay, good. Moving right along here. Next thing we're going to do is going to be right femur to my right. Again, turn on the eyeball. Let's grab our selection. You can see this is tedious, and it's the same thing every time, but it'll get you to the job done. Maybe about right there. Or yeah, we can just go all the way down here with this one. Let's do about right there. Okay, select, inverse, delete. Again, grab your move tool here. Hold down shift, bring this thing down a little bit. You can see what needs to be erased. Let's grab your eraser tool here. We're going to leave that as it is, and we're just going to erase the top here. Again, take your finger off the mouse and just take your time to avoid any mistakes. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so let's move that back up. Shift, and it's looking good. Okay, and then the last one here, right calf, RTCALF. Oops, always have to misspell one of them. Okay, and we're going to turn that on, and let's see, we cut it. Okay, right there, so I go right there at the ball. And let's go ahead and grab that straight line right here. Okay, and select inverse, delete, and we should be good to go. Okay, Control D to deselect. So that's the process on how you take a flattened image and make individual parts out of it. So we have the skull and neck, we have the torso, we have left bicep, we have left forearm, right bicep, right forearm, pelvis, left femur, left calf, right femur, right calf, Now we have all of our individual parts, and in the next step I'll show you how to import this into After Effects. Okay, so don't forget to save your file once you do this. Make sure you save your Photoshop file. So File, Save. I'm just going to call this Skeleton Parts, this file, and I'm going to save onto my computer. And I'm going to save that in my, let's see, beginning After Effects folder for number 9. Okay? And I'm just going to save it as a Photoshop file. Click Save. Click OK. So you want to make sure to have these saved, because then you're going to import these layers into After Effects in the next step. Okay, so we have all of our parts here labeled. Now we can just import this Photoshop file into After Effects. So let's go back to After Effects here. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and do File, Import, File. And we're just going to select our Photoshop document. Here where it says Import as Footage, we're going to change that and import it as a composition. Okay, so instead of footage, import it as a composition. Click Import. And right here, Editable Layer Styles is fine. Click OK. And here you can see a folder that has all of your parts. So that's perfect. That's what we need. So let's start with our skull and neck like we did. So you just bring that down to your timeline. Perfect. Down below that, of course, is going to be our torso. There's the torso. Then let's go ahead and do left bicep. And let's do left forearm. Here we go. Now we'll do right bicep. And then right forearm. Okay, so you can see there's an order to this that I'm doing. It's what I have in my head. Doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you understand it. Pelvis. Then we'll do left femur. Left calf. Let's do right femur and right calf. Okay, so now here in After Effects we have all the parts of the skeleton. Again, we have the skull and neck, torso, biceps and forearms, femurs and calves, right? And pelvis as well, yeah. Okay, so now that you have all of your parts in After Effects and lined up on the timeline, the next tedious part will be to make sure that each part has its anchor point in the right position. That is, so its center of rotation will be correct when we rotate one of the limbs, for example. Okay, so now we have all of our parts here in After Effects, and I went through and renamed all these just so it's easier to see. So you can rename these if you need to. If you need to rename them, just click on the layer, right-click on it, and then just choose Rename. Okay, so all these are done and ready to go. Now, the next thing I would do, I highly recommend you do this, or you're going to run into some problems, is to work on your anchor points for each object. And just to demonstrate, let me shut off all of these layers, except for the top layer here. If you look at the top layer here, you can see here's my neck and my head. The actual rotating point is this little anchor here. You can see how far away it is from that. So if I go to rotate my neck, let's say, and skull on my skeleton, watch what happens here. Notice there it's rotating around this point here. I'd rather have the center of rotation right at the base of the neck. So to do that, I need to move my anchor point to the base of the neck. And so to do that, you just go into that layer and see where it says anchor point here under transform controls. Then you just move your object to the anchor point. And so now the anchor point's right at the base of the neck. So watch what happens now when I rotate. See how he's rotating on that? So you want to change your anchor points for each part that you think are going to need it. And here I can change my rotation back to 0 if I want. And then what I'll do now is turn on the torso beneath it. And then now I can move my skeleton or my skull back up where it needs to be. And notice there, let's see here. Let's go ahead, bring that back down. We want that anchor point to follow him. Let's move this over just a little bit. There we go. And just once you get the anchor point set where it needs to go, just move the position here and notice the anchor point follows. Okay. Okay, and then let's just move this over a little bit more here. About right there. Yeah, it looks good. So now when I rotate the skull, if I'm doing an animation, notice there it's going to rotate on the right point. Okay. All right, so let's do the same thing with the next one. Let's go ahead and turn the skull off. Let's go to the torso. And all we have to do with the torso is move the anchor point a little bit to the bottom of the spine. Okay, so we'll move this over. Bring it down to about right there. So again, when I rotate the torso, it's going to rotate on its center of rotation, right? Bring that back to 0. Turn on our skull here. And then we'll move this back over and up. About there. Okay, so that one's good. Let's go ahead and do our bicep next. Notice there the anchor point's down below there. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. Bring this over and then down. And now the anchor point's right there on the bicep. So now we'll go to position. Move that back up. Move it over and down just a little bit. And we should be good there. So now when you rotate this, it's going to rotate on the right center of gravity there. Okay. All right, so just keep moving on, and that's how you do each object here. Let's do the forearm next. Okay, and you see where the anchor point is. So again, we're going to move the anchor point to the right spot by moving the arm. Okay, and then bring that down. Again, I'm doing the anchor point here. I'm just moving the controls for the anchor point here. And yes, it's repositioning the arm, but it's getting the anchor point in the right spot. Just about at the elbow. There we go. Now our position change comes and we move this up and notice the anchor point follows it. Okay. Maybe about there. That looks pretty good. And again, so again, when you rotate it, it's going to rotate on the right axis there. Okay. And so that's basically what you want to do for each item there. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this. I'm going to change the anchor point for every object so its center of rotation is in the right spot. So keep going with that and finish, do all the parts, and then you'll be ready to start parenting or rigging your model. Okay, the rigging process is a matter of parenting one object to another, and we parent from the outside into the center. So we go from forearm to bicep, bicep to torso, and let's say torso to pelvis. Similarly, we'd go right calf to right femur, and then right femur into the pelvis. Similarly, we'd go skull and neck to torso. And you see here, everything eventually will link down to one central object, which is the pelvis. Okay, back in After Effects here, we'll put some of that logic to action here. And let's start with the left forearm here. And here I'll show you where that is. So if we go to my rotation there, you can see it's right there. And we're going to link that forearm to the left bicep just above it. And the way to do that, you want to make sure this parent and link section is open here in your layers window. And if it's not, click the toggle switches and modes. Should be there anyway, but so here's how you can do it. You can left forearm, you can click where it says parent and link, where it says none. Click this, and then just select the object you want to link it to. Now it's linked to the bicep, right? The left bicep. And so when I go up to the bicep and rotate the bicep, notice there that the forearm follows it because now the bicep is the parent to the forearm, right? And so now we're going to link the bicep to the torso. And you can do that again over here where it says none under parent and link. Just click there and select torso. So now if I rotate the torso, Notice there that the bicep and the forearm follow because the torso's the parent now. Same thing with the head and the neck, right? The skull and the neck. We can link that to the torso. Now there's another way you can do it. You can grab this parent pick whip tool right here. It's called the pick whip. If you click this tool, hold the mouse button down, you can just drag it to the object that you want to link it to, and notice there it shows up here. It's the same thing, but you're just using this tool. Okay, so now the skull and neck are linked to the torso. So again, if I move the torso, everything that's linked to it's going to follow. Let's go to the other side here. Now we have a right forearm, and we'll just grab our pick whip tool and link that to the right bicep. And again, the right bicep is going to link to the torso. Okay, so again, if you want to test it, move the torso and you can see how everything's following. Okay, and let's go ahead and link our legs here. Let's go to left femur, and we'll link that to the pelvis just above it, right? So let's go over here, choose pelvis, okay, and then left calf. We're going to link that to the left femur, which is linked to the pelvis, right? And notice the pelvis is not linked to anything. Everything's linked into the pelvis here. Right femur, same thing. We're going to link that to the pelvis. And then right calf, we're going to link that to the right femur. And the torso is also not linked to anything. So we're going to go ahead and link the torso to the pelvis also. So everything's going to link into the pelvis. So the pelvis is going to be your central object. So if you need to move your creature, just grab your creature by that central object, okay? And here's how you can test it out. Let's go to left femur here. Do a little test rotation. Everything seems to be logically following. Right femur, same thing. Everything seems to be logically following. That's good. And let's do the torso. Torso should be working properly with everything properly linked. Yeah, so it looks like everything's linked pretty well. I think we're good to go, and I think we're ready to start animating in the next part of this video. Okay, so back now, we are ready to roll. We've gotten everything properly linked. And again, if you need to move your object around the canvas, you can't just, at this point, since everything's linked, you can't just grab any old object, right? Because anything else behind it won't follow it if it's not linked to it in the proper order. Everything is eventually linked down to the pelvis, so if you want to move your object, you want to basically move it based on that object that everything else is linked to. Notice here under parent and link, pelvis is not parented to anything because it is the parent of everything else, right? It's the last object that everything links into. So if you need to move your creature around the canvas, just pick that central object and then, adjust your position. In this case, I don't really need to move him around so much. I'll leave him there. But what I'd like to do is make him smaller. So again, the same principle applies. For example, if I just want to make the bicep smaller here, I can, but look, the object that it's linked to follows it, so that's a good thing, but we want to do it all at once. So if I want the whole creature to be smaller, again, you go to the object that everything is linked into, the pelvis. Now watch, when I scale the pelvis, everything else will follow. So make sure you know what that central object is that everything eventually links into, because that's where you're going to make scale and position changes if you need to. Okay, and I can also move him down a little bit. Let's do that. Let's move him down to about here, and then we can make him a little larger too at the same time. Perfect. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start our animation now. All of our anchor points are in the right spot. Everything seems to be logically linked. And so I'm going to have this guy doing a little exercise here. And so the goal of this assignment is to build a simple creature of some kind. I spent a lot of time building that skeleton, so it doesn't have to be extremely complex or anything like that. But your job is to now give this creature some kind of life or some kind of behavior. In this case, I'm going to have him do some jumping jacks. So in comp 1, we're going to make 1 second. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to composition settings. Remember, you can go back and change this anytime. So let's do a 1 second here. Excuse me. And we're just going to do a 1 second jumping jack here. So that's going to make things pretty easy. So about 15 frames into it is going to be, he's going to be up top in his jump here. So let's go ahead, let's go back to home here, and we're going to start our position keyframes here. It looks like I already have one there, so I'm going to leave that. So about 15 frames into it, he's going to be jumping up. And so let's go ahead and raise him up here. That's probably pretty high there. Let's maybe about there. And then again, hit end, and we'll have him go to back to his original position. Control C, Control V. Okay. And so there's our jumping jack. That's pretty good. I don't think I need to do too much to it. I could change the speed graph. So let's see what that looks like if we change the speed graph on the position here. So we're going to go down here. It looks like we're already on the speed graph, which is great. So go ahead and select your points so you can change this to a smooth Bezier. And again, I'm going to do the similar thing I did with the ball bouncing. I'm just going to create kind of like a sine wave kind of shape here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And let's raise these up. Okay, let's see what that looks like. That's going to probably help us out here too. That's pretty fast, huh? So we don't want him to go that fast. So basically, let's bring this down. We're going to reduce that. And we're going to make this a little wider. Okay, let's bring this down even more. Again, same thing. Let's bring these out. And so playing with these is a little tricky. It takes a little practice. I'm still working with these two. But it's pretty fun if you can get it right. That'll probably help too right there. Let's try that. Okay, it's a little slow. Again, I think we can speed that up just a little bit. So let's make our slope a little steeper. Try that. Maybe that'll help. Okay, it's getting close. And let's see. Let's expand that out a little bit. Again, it's just a matter of adjusting these points here. It can be a little bit tricky, but let's bring this in a little bit. Okay, let's try that. That might be a good one. Getting there. So again, just keep adjusting until you see what, or like what you see. That might be kind of interesting. Let's try that. That looks pretty good. So let's bring this down a little bit more. Bring these in. I don't know if that'll make much of a difference, but let's try it. Okay, so playing with the speed graph is something that, again, might serve you well in this kind of assignment. And practice with the speed graph. I think that would be a good idea. So I do recommend that. Yeah, I like that. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to leave that the way it is. All right, so now I can go back to my timeline here, and let's make some other things happen while he's jumping up. So in his 1 second bounce, when he starts to go up here, by the time he gets there, the arm should be rotating. So again, I'm going to do a rotation now. And these are the rotations are where a lot of the action points are on a character like this. So by the time it gets here, actually, I don't want to rotate the pelvis. Let's try that again. Let's go back, and we're going to go to the left bicep, okay? So let's open that one up. And again, make sure your scrub key's at 0. we're going to do a rotation change here. So start keyframing rotation. By the time we get to 15 seconds, this bicep will have rotated up to about here maybe. And by the time we get to the end, it's going to be back to where it was. Control C, Control V. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Okay, perfect. Look at that. Okay, same thing. We're going to do the same thing with the right bicep. Again, make sure your scrub key's at 0. Start with your rotation here at 15 seconds. Let's have this one maybe be a little bit off from the other one. So it's not perfect, right? So this one will come up to about there a little sooner. Let's see if that looks good. Yeah, so they don't have to be exactly on at the same time. It's not, in fact, you're trying to make things a little more believable by setting them off a little different, changing a little bit here and there. Okay, let's see what we got so far. Perfect. I'm loving that. Okay. All right, so the other things we can do the elbows maybe, or at the joint between the bicep and the forearm. So let's go to forearm now, and we'll keyframe a rotation with that. Start there at the beginning, right? And then by the time we get up to about, or maybe to about here, we'll keep that same position, right? Control C, Control V. And then as he moves toward 15, we'll have this thing rotate just a little bit. That's probably good right there, right? And then again, by the end, we're going to be back to the original spot. Control C, Control V. Okay? So you can see his arm bending there a little bit. And so we can do the same thing with the other one. Let's go to the left forearm. Same thing. Make sure your scrub key's at 0. Rotation here. By the time we get to 14 seconds, I'm going to do this one off a little bit. Again, we're going to rotate this thing to about there. And then we're going to go to the end. And we're going to paste or copy and paste that original keyframe. This is what we have so far. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Okay, so we have the arms going here. Probably maybe something else we could do is maybe move the head around a little bit, or even the legs. So we could, I know, I have an idea. Let's do the legs. So let's go to left femur here. Yeah, let's rotate those out a little bit. So again, make sure your scrub key's at 0. We'll do a rotation. Again, about halfway. We'll have this rotation. Oops, wrong one. Get this one on the right here. Maybe out to there. And then end, and then copy paste. So you can see you can do a lot of little animations here. Let's go left femur, or right femur, sorry. Do the same thing. Again, scrub key at 0, so hit home. Start your rotation. So maybe about there, a little before the other one, or maybe a little after for that matter. A little before, I guess. Maybe about right there. Oops, wrong one again. Do this one on the number on the right. Okay, and then end. Well, actually, let's select this first keyframe and then Control C, Control V. Okay, so here's what we have so far. Okay, it's looking pretty good. And then maybe the last thing I might do is move his head around a little bit just to give it some variety. So we'll go to skull and neck. Again, at 0 there, we want to do a rotation. And when he's coming up this way, maybe his head will still be there. Let's see, Control C, Control V. And then right here, as he's coming up, he's going to rotate his head here a little bit. Like so. And then maybe back to this, Control C, Control V. Then as he's coming down, maybe he'll, well, let's keep him in that position till here, Control V. And then as he's coming down, toward the ground there. I'll rotate there a little bit, and then when he hits the ground, turn to this one, Control C, Control V. Okay, let's see what we have so far here with the head movement also. Well, that looks pretty good. I actually like that. Okay, so you can see there's a lot you can do. Maybe we'll do one more. Yeah, you know what we do? Let's do torso movement. So that'll be the last one. So we're going to move the torso just a little bit so he's not so stiff. Again, we're at the beginning of the timeline rotation there. And as he comes up here, actually maybe we'll start him off rotated a little bit. That's actually a pretty good idea. Like that. And then as he comes up to the top here, we'll have him straighten out. Let's go back to 0 there. Okay. So we'll start off a little bit. Okay. And then maybe from here to there, we'll have him rotate again a little bit more. Like so. And as he's coming down, we'll have him straighten out about right there. Again, just 0 there. And the key, notice the keyframes it. And then we're done. Okay, let's try that. A little jerky, right? So maybe what we'll do is we'll have them end up here. So let's grab this first keyframe, Control C, go to end, and maybe just a little bit before the end. Here, we'll paste that in here. Control V. Let's see if that helps. Yeah, it looks better, I think, to have them come back to that leaning position. Okay, so there's our basic animation, right? So now we can nest this into another composition here. Let's nest it in, we'll call it our final animation. So composition new. This time we're going to make a, I guess, what's the 5 second story? Let's do a 6 second maybe, and we'll call this final animation. And instead of 1 second, let's turn this into a 6 second animation. That'd probably be enough. You can go anywhere between 5 and 10 seconds, probably. Now let's do 7. What the hell? Click OK. All right, and now we're going to take comp 1, the 1 second bounce that we did. I don't need this one anymore. But comp 1 has our 1 second bounce, so we're going to drop that in here. And then I'm going to just duplicate this. So we'll call this jumping jack. Okay, and then let's just duplicate it. So 6 times, I guess. Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more. Okay, so we should have enough for 7 seconds here. So now we're just going to make sure, if you go to the top of the screen, make sure snapping is on. And then these will just snap right to the end of each timeline. It's pretty easy to do it without snap on too, but it does help. And then we'll give ourselves our 6 second animation here. And notice how easy it is to do just maybe a 1 or 2 second animation and then just loop it like this. And so this is what we have so far. Okay, so there's our 7 second animation. And make sure, again, you see it go all the way to 7 here. 629, that's about right? 29.97 frames a second. And now the last thing we have to do is add in our background and maybe some sound. So let's go ahead and import a picture here. Import file, and I found a gem here. I'm going to bring that in. And let's put the gem up top here. Actually, we'll put that underneath, huh? Okay, and there's our gem. And here's our dude jumping in, doing his jumping jack. So let's adjust the color of the gem. So let's go ahead and add an effect to that. So we're going to go ahead and do some color correction. I think I'm just going to use curves for this. Let's see if I can find curves. Here we go. Again, one of my favorite colorization tools is curves. And we can make that a little darker so we can see him better. And maybe play with the colors a little bit. That looks pretty good right there. Maybe adjust the blues a little bit. Ooh, the red looks nice there too. Let's get rid of that. Let's grab the blue in there. Bring some of that up maybe and darken that just a little bit. There we go. And just so we can see him a little bit better. Okay, so he's working out in the gym there. That looks pretty good. Let's see if we can brighten that up just a hair. All right, and bring some of that down. There we go. I like that. You can see the gym a little bit better. And we could also do that on our jumping jacks too, but that would probably be better to do that. If we were to do that, let's go ahead and delete this. And we'll take this final animation and rename that. If I go into comp settings, and we can rename that. We'll just call that 7-second jumping jack, 7-sec jack. Click OK, and then we can do another composition. See, new composition, 7 seconds. Okay, and we'll call this one final. Comp settings. I forgot to name it. This will make your colorization a little bit easier. Okay, and then drop 7-second jack in there. Let's go to project, back to project window. Drop this in there. And now we can just bring the background into this one here. So you may want to end up doing 3. And again, if we did some color correction over here, I'm thinking maybe brightness and contrast on him. But let's do the gym here first. And let's do, again, color. Well, let's do curves again. I like curves. So I'll drop that in here. Make that a little darker. I like to bring out the cooler colors for some reason. I actually like the blue. That looks good. I like that. And then on the 7-second jack, maybe we can try a brightness contrast to bring him out a little more. Let's see if we can do that. There we go. Let's grab this one and see if we can maybe do something about him. That's kind of interesting. I brought up the contrast. It's bringing out the shadows here a little bit. And you can even brighten him up a little bit too, so he stands out a little more. Okay, and then you can really see the animation, even though the light doesn't really blend in with the gym. It's okay. And so that's kind of how you do the assignment. I would probably, if you're going to give your subject some behaviors, you could do all the animation maybe in a 1 or 2 second composition, and then embed those into a longer composition. And then the final composition is where you could bring your images and your, oh, and I almost forgot audio too, so let's do that here. So let's go ahead and file, import, and we're going to bring in a sound clip here. Got to have some music, right? Can't work out without some music. So let's see what we got here. Okay, here's our composition. Okay, so then again, it's all about nesting compositions, and in each composition you do some kind of different aspect to the final animation, and then you embed those into later compositions and put it all together with your background and your music. And so that's the basic assignment of rigging and animating your model in After Effects.